That is awesome. Polyphonic, analog filter, analog oscillators. That is cool. The one thing that would make it better is if we could use the envelope generator to affect the filter cutoff point, which we can, and we're about to. Cool. And that also works in the Unison mode. People have already asked me, oh, should I get the Volca Keys or should I get the Volca bass so I can have bass? Well, it's like that question doesn't even make sense because you have a bass monosynth in the Volca Keys and you also have a treble monosynth in the Volca bass. I mean, these things overlap massively. Listen to that sound. That is pretty awesome, I have to say. That is a really great sound to my ears. There's the octave setting. We could go to the 5th setting. Really, really cool. So it's got a great sounding filter. It's got this really diverse oscillator system. Whenever you hear retriggering, that's me, again, not playing the notes right. So yeah, the filter is awesome. The oscillators are awesome. And then there is the LFO. Okay, so the LFO, here is your rate setting. And here's where you get to direct it to either the pitch or you can direct it to the cutoff point of the filter. And the LFO is going to be a triangle wave. So now the thing that happened here in Volca Keys as well, again, Korg loves you. How do you know that Korg loves you? Well, if you watch the last video, it's because the LFO goes into audio range modulation. Hear that little distortion? That's the thing that makes analog synths great. When you can modulate the filter cutoff point with an oscillator, an audio range oscillator, that's where fat comes from. So if we take that sound and we back it off, we get a fat sound, as if we didn't already have one. And we're getting that fat sound if we're using the polyphonic section too. That is a much more vintage analog polyphonic sound. Rich and warm and wow. I mean, wow. Listen to that. Does that sound like a modern digital thing? No, it does not. I answered you for you. But wow. I mean, I was just amazed when I heard this. You can also direct that distortion that happens with audio range LFO to the pitch. And you can back it off so it's not like insane. Which also adds fatness. That nice saturation distortion. You can add them both. You go into polyphonic, I mean, kind of a noisy, rich sound. That's a great polyphonic sound. Wow. Okay, so yeah, that is what we're looking for in a modern analog synthesizer, is the ability to modulate the filter in the audio range. And we come down here and we have the EG, the envelope generator, which is connected to the amp, as well as, of course, the VCF and the VCO. So you have the EG going to all three sections. So that's awesome. You have sustain you can control. With the sustain off, we hear the attack and the decay release. Of course, we set the decay release up. The note will continue after I've played it. With sustain up, the note will hold as long as my finger's on it. And then go into the release stage after I let go. That is amazing. That is really an amazing sound. Okay, so POW. For this price, all of this great sound, all of this functionality that you have been looking for a long time, and they went in and gave you a gosh danged delay. It's like Mort Garson happening now. How awesome is that? And of course you can do it in the Unison mode. I know these are directed primarily to like electronic dance music, but I mean, I'm a vintage guy and this really pleases me. That is awesome. You have control over the time. And of course the feedback, how many times the echoes happen. You can turn it way up. We can turn the time way down and the feedback way up. So look at that. I mean, there's so much that could be done with that. I've only scratched the surface of the possible settings you could dive into and create, the sounds you could create. It's so diverse, it drives me crazy. That is the sound of, and also you'll notice, did you hear that delay? It's really crunchy. which I personally like. Okay, so that is the sound of, oh, I should say, let's put this in the LFO section. If the LFO waveform isn't what you want, right now it's set to triangle, you can set it to other things. Here's the saw. Or you can set it to square. You can also turn off the trigger sync. Or turn on the trigger sync so that it is activated. It's re-triggered every single time you play a note. So every time you play, it is re-triggered at the place at the start. Now with that off, you may not get that. You'll get it wherever it currently is at. But with it on, it'll re-trigger every time. So that's a cool thing to have with the LFO. The ability to decide which waveform you want, and this is a pretty good spread of waveforms for the LFO. Could also be using it on the pitch. There's square. We've heard triangle. Let's listen to saw with pitch. Cool. So that's another aspect of the LFO that we have control over.